Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Decentralized Revolution, episode number 155, Mises Caucus podcast. My name is Nate Thurston. Aaron could not be here tonight. He's very sorry about that, I'm sure. But I am hanging out here with Mr. Jon Thorp, who's the independent candidate in the upcoming special election. That's on December 2nd. That's in Tennessee's 7th Congressional District. Jon, how are you doing tonight?
Excellent. Thank you for having me. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say there are technically 4 independents that are running. I've been complaining against the rest of the media for leaving us out. So equal footing here.
Well, that's very big. That's very big, and that's very principled of you to make sure that I don't forget, or we don't forget to mention that there are other independent candidates. Are those other candidates, like, are they also, strongly left, right, Republican, Democrat leaning? Like, what's the independent field look like?
I've never met 2 of them. One of them doesn't even have a website. The other one has more or less withdrawn. And the last has been at a few events that I've been at. I would say is pretty straight down the middle.
Okay. All right. Well, we did our due diligence there, and now we've talked about the other independent candidates. I've been seeing commercials for Van Epps and maybe for the other one as well. I can't remember her name. But before we talk election and all that stuff, I want to make sure everyone gets a sense of your backstory, which is a pretty interesting backstory. So why don't you tell everyone about yourself?
Well, that's kind of open-ended. The relevant stuff, I suppose, I entered the Army in 99 after a short stint in college out in New York that I did not enjoy. I was going for computer engineering, hated the major, hated the college, hated the area. And so kind of needed to rediscover myself, went in the Army, spent 10 years, a little over 10 years in the Army, eventually became a pilot, helicopter pilot, flew Chinooks. And the relevant part of that story is I participated in the 2000 election with Bush Gore. And that was the infamous hanging chads, for those of us that are old enough to remember that one. And I just remember the hypocrisy. What really stands out in my mind on that event was the hypocrisy of both sides, how they kind of went from one side to the other, depending on which party was winning. With the courts, they had been challenging what absentee ballots, or even the local ballots, because they had the weird like punch system. Which ballots could be counted and which couldn't. And people would say, you need to trust the system, or the system is broken, depending on if their party was winning. So just left a bad taste in my mouth. Became an independent at that point in time. Never could bring myself to vote for the lesser of 2 evils, as we're always told. I had been, again, I'm in the military for so long that I was basically an absentee ballot. I was registered still in South Dakota, so I didn't really want to participate in the local elections. And then I bounced around for a long time, came into Tennessee back in 2012, I suppose, somewhere around that area. And regretfully, I didn't, again, participate in the local elections. I feel like maybe I should have. But in any case, this year, continuing resolution, it was a rehash of that hanging chad thing. This was the continuing resolution time. And again, it was that weird flip-flop. Thomas Massie was the only Republican to vote against, which was Biden's spending plan. And he got lambasted for it, which just, it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. So I decided I'd throw my hat in the ring. And here I am today.
Now, I did want to mention the interesting thing here. You said you flew Chinooks. I don't know if you know this, but Matt Van Epps, his logo has a Chinook in it. So you might be seen as a bigger danger in this campaign than you even give yourself credit for in other interviews I've heard.
Yeah, the attacks have started coming in. They've asked me how convenient it is that I have the same colors and logo as Matt, despite the fact that the Chinook is the only helicopter that I've ever flown in the Army. unlike Matt, who was he was in Apache first, and is on his other social media. It's a picture of an Apache, not a Chinook. And I mean, red is. It was part of my original. It was red, white, and blue was my original design until we had a redesign. But the idea was to showcase my conservative leanings, which is that red aspect. And I don't know. Here we are.
Yeah. We'll get into some of the shenanigans that have taken place over the last week or so here in a bit. I love that you mentioned all the heat that Thomas Massie was taking as being sort of the reason that you decided it was time to get in this. I mean, that has just been the most disappointing thing I've seen this year so far. And I know we've had this conversation a little bit before. If people listening don't know, what you've been on my show, Good Morning Liberty, a month or so ago, and I think we talked about the Thomas Massie thing at that time. But it's been so disappointing to see small government, supposed conservatives go after like I always felt like you can disagree with the strategy, but straight up going after someone and doing all the things we've seen this year, it's just been very disappointing to see.
Yeah, they're not very principled, and that's a perfect example of it. And the fact that I'm getting attacked as some closet leftist is laughable as well, because literally every aspect of my campaign is about small government, limited restrictions on the free market, which has absolutely nothing to do. It's the antithesis of a left platform. And my entire career prior to this, everything about my life has always been about that. I'm very consistent with that. I don't know. It's politics.
Yeah. If you don't mind, we'll do a little bit of current events, which is not normally on the schedule for an interview like this. But did you see the Epstein files bill has been pushed all the way through the Senate? I did not expect this. It went all the way through. It passed by unanimous consent in the Senate and has headed to Trump's desk to, I guess, be signed sometime shortly. I don't know when, but you might be as shocked as I am. I was sure they were going to add a bunch of amendments to this thing to try and water it down a bit, but they sent it right through. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I knew that the House had passed it, but I was pretty sure, like you said, that they were going to try to drag their feet in the Senate and try to change some things around, which, I mean, the Democrats have been, to their credit, been trying to push that through for a long time. And it just goes to show what's the one thing that changed. The bill has been there for a long time. The Republican Party has been pushing against it for weeks. I don't remember when he first introduced that bill.
Once it was before the shutdown. The shutdown was 40 days, and that was over a week or so ago. So it's been a couple months now.
So literally the only thing that has changed is Trump's stance on it. So it's, he says jump and they all say how high. And that's what's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty wild to see. And then it's funny to see all the talking heads sort of flip on it, from it going to being pointless and a hoax. And then now, it's checkmate Trump. He got all the Democrats to support the Epstein vote. And now I hope some good things come from it. I hope we get some information. I have to remain skeptical, but that's not my fault. That's their fault for lying to me constantly over the years. And so I have to remain skeptical that anything real and substantial is going to happen from this. I mean, we'll move on from the Epstein thing, but what's your idea here? Is this going to be world changing news? Are we finally going to get the truth and everyone's going to be satisfied after these files get released?
No, I don't think anybody is ever going to be satisfied, but I don't know if you read the bill. It allows for redactions based on certain certain caveats, one of which is national security, which, as I'm sure you're well aware, the government loves to use that to its advantage whenever possible. So there's such a wide interpretation of that. Is anything of consequence going to come out? Probably not. Will some people get thrown to the wolves? I certainly hope so. The whole point is transparency and accountability, with emphasis on accountability. But it's to me, it's a proxy of a larger issue with the government. I mean, if you remember, just recently, they authorized the release of the Amelia Earhart files, which that was almost 90 years ago. Why in the world did they keep that stuff classified for 90 years? Now, the argument is that, and I get it, the reason why it was classified in the first place is that they used some pretty advanced technology to attempt to triangulate and track down that aircraft, which this was on the cusp of World War II. So had the enemy found out what our capabilities were, that would have been pretty bad. So I got it, but they have to renew that every 25 years. After 25 years, that technology was obsolete. So what in the world were they doing? And why did it take them 90 years to declassify that? So it's a larger issue, and I hope it just kind of opens the door a little bit to more transparency and more accountability.
Yeah, I think like a really big thing we all want to see from this is, justice for the victims, if there is such a thing that is possible, but also it's supposed to be the government working for the people. The people are supposed to be running the government. And if there is, in fact, a cabal or an elite group of people that are running the government or they have some kind of giant blackmail operation over a bunch of other people, I think we ought to know about that. And I think that it just gets to the heart of the deep state idea and what Trump campaigned and has run and had his whole presidential career based on fighting against. And I hope some things come out. Like I said, I'll remain skeptical, and I hope to be pleasantly surprised, as I was today when the Senate passed it by unanimous consent.
You and me both.
That was, yeah. So you're running as an independent, and I wanted to ask, like, I went back and listened to a few of the other interviews that you had done, and when people ask, like, how do you think the election's going to turn out or whatever, you're not doing this typical thing of like, we're going to win, and on my first day in office, I'm going to put this on the floor and all that. You're kind of being maybe a little more realistic. This is a long shot chance. Hopefully there's a large voting block of people out there that are looking to vote independent, but we know the odds on this kind of thing. So, what I wanted to know is why is it still important to give people that independent option?
Well, I'll try not to forget I'm like a goldfish, and I'll probably forget because I go off on tangents.
I think my wife there were like 3 questions inside of a really long tangent inside of that question. So
I started this race in March, and I registered for the 2026 election. So that's the goal. The goal has always been 2026. And I hope to win 2026. It just so happened that Mark Green retired suddenly in the middle of my very long, slow grassroots campaign and messed up my strategy. It actually has accelerated it quite a bit, made me learn a whole lot. And I have made a ton of fantastic connections and learned a lot about the people of Tennessee. And I'm still hopeful and very optimistic that 2026 is going to be a very close, very real win for us. 2025, the special election, highly unlikely. I don't think I'm going to even get close to 10%. I'm not disillusioned, or I'm a pragmatist. But I think it's going to be enough that it'll help the momentum rolling into 2026. And I think it's going to show people that there are other voters out there that are in the same boat as them, because we're constantly told what we're fighting against is this narrative that independents can't win. Half of America is independent, yet somehow independents can't win. We outnumber Republicans and Democrats almost 2-1 combined. It'd be, equal footing there, but yet somehow independents are not supposed to win. So it's a long narrative. We're slowly cracking into the armor. Literally just today, we got news that the local TV station is finally going to give us an interview. So baby steps.
Yeah, that's good. And hopefully you'll have their number for next time around also. So just
Right.
keep building those relationships. I was curious earlier when I was thinking about it. I don't know how close the district is, like how far red or Republican the district is. I imagine it's pretty red. We're in Tennessee. So I imagine it is. Would you be worried, like if you got enough support of being the spoiler in the election and throwing it towards a Democrat, is that something to be like, oh, I really don't want that to happen, so reckon I ought to drop out?
No. Again, an independent is not a spoiler vote. When you are the majority, when you are the largest voting bloc in the United States, you cannot be a spoiler vote. And whether or not I siphon off more votes from the Republican Party than the Democrat Party is irrelevant to me. That is a reflection on the party itself and who they chose. I think, this is if I remember the numbers correctly, this was supposed to be a plus 24 Republican district. They should have just soundly beaten Afton. But they're worried. That's why they're attacking me. They're bringing in a whole lot more money. They've just sunk another 300,000, 600,000. I don't remember what the number was, from outside sources. And they even brought Trump in to try to bolster support for this horrible candidate nobody liked. The only reason he won the primary, in my opinion, is because of the outside money. Had somebody like Jody Barrett, who seems to be a very true, traditional conservative, I think he would have trounced Afton Bain and myself with no problem whatsoever. But the reason why half of Americans identify as independent is because they have been continually told who to vote for. They are, rather than allow the democratic process to function by itself, they're putting their fingers on the scale. We can see that when the Democrats installed Kamala Harris without a single vote whatsoever when Biden was no longer able to run, and we saw that when they tipped the scales and prevented Ron Paul from running. So it's not relegated to one party or another, and I think people are finally getting to the point where they're so sick and tired of it that an independent has a very real chance of winning.
One of the things I saw in one of your ads was it said no party bosses on it in one of the ads. And I thought that was so important, and sort of what you were just talking about. I mean, we've seen this team mentality. I mean, we talked about how it was a team mentality for many years now, but I've never seen it quite like it is right now. I feel like it's getting so much worse, the partisanship and the team mentality where you have to support whatever your leader is telling you to do, whether it be the House Speaker, the Senate leader, or the president telling you what to do, that you just have to vote for it. And it gets so far removed from any principles. It makes me wonder, like, what is the point of this party? What is the direction of that? What do you actually believe in? And for the life of me, I can't figure it out. I can't figure out what either one of the major parties really believe in. Have you felt this? Like, I pay a lot of attention to this stuff because I do a show every day of the week. And I cannot figure out what these parties are pushing for the future of America right now. For the life of me, I don't know what the direction is at all. And could you help me out with that? Could you tell me where they're pushing us right now?
Well, I think you're spot on there. There's obviously a rift in the Republican Party where there's a lot of people who had supported Trump that have been disillusioned and feel like they have been pushed out of the party. I can't tell you how many people I have seen who have been Republicans their entire life, and they've literally said that they will never vote for another Republican ever. I think they're maybe just being a little emotional and they're lashing out a little bit, but there are a lot of people who are really pissed off, and same for the Democrats. But it's a little bit different there, where I think it's kind of largely leadershipless. They have latched on to so many different different areas where they thought they should include. It's the party of inclusion, that they're largely directionless. When you focus on everything, you focus on nothing, type of thing. And then if you look at the United States in general, as a whole, as the nation, I feel like we're kind of a rudderless ship that is just running aimlessly along the ocean without a direction, because the parties have been so focused on their own power and their own retention of those seats that they've forgotten that they're supposed to be working for the people. And I am very optimistic for the future, which is a little bit surprising for me because I'm kind of a pessimist, to be perfectly honest. But so many people have seen it and have started to say something about it, that I really think that we have a real chance of changing the direction of the country.
Yeah, I think people are really getting sick of this, just the partisanship, the team mentality, all that. I sort of notice a big riff in the Republican Party right now. I don't know if it's going to get healed up any after this Epstein thing. They all came together and voted for the same thing today. Save one person. Maybe that's going to help. But I don't. What do you think is going on with the fracturing in this party? I think it's important, even though we're talking about an independent campaign, what's happened from the 2024 election through this year, and the kind of stuff I'm seeing from people right now. You mentioned people saying they're never going to vote Republican again. I'm a libertarian who voted Republican. I'm not going to say I'll never vote Republican again, but I've been pretty upset a few times, more than a few times this year. What do you make of what's going on with that party right now?
Well, I think the Republican Party kind of showed how weak they were back in 2016 when they let Trump. Well, I don't think they were overtaken by Trump. He took over the party. He had been a Democrat, I think, most of his life, if not all of his life, and he rolled in and basically ran roughshod over the entire leadership, which showed that his populist message was something that was resounding with people, because the Republican Party had kind of lost their message. They have been historically the party of the people, of small government, of limited restrictions, and they lost it somewhere along the way. And Trump was speaking all the right things and talking about the things that people wanted to get fixed. And so now that Trump, in my opinion, is in his second term and is again showing that he's not following through with a lot of what he had promised on, it is creating a divide between the people who, like yourself, maybe weren't necessarily staunch Republican or historically even Republican at all, but were supportive of those ideas, versus those that had felt like their party got taken over by this Trump guy, versus those that wanted that MAGA. There's just so many different directions because they've lost the core message of where they're going and what they stand for. I wouldn't be surprised to see multiple parties splinter off from this, and that would probably be a good thing. And look, I've said this before, I don't remember where, but we're tribal. Human beings are tribal animals. I totally understand that. And that's been one of the hardest aspects of running as an independent, trying to figure out how to appeal to people, how to get them to identify with something that by its very definition is exclusionary, I guess, for lack of better terms. And so I think independents, while necessary, are going to be transitory. We hopefully we can get in, we can break things, as they say in business, and then allow other people to come back in behind us and move the goalpost, move the ball forward now. Whether that's going to be multiple parties that have splintered off from the current ones, or they've re-identified themselves, I don't know. I'm hoping there's going to be at least more than two, though.
Yeah, and if you're a Republican or a Democrat that's accidentally listening right now, what I would just say is that that's a good thing for your party as well. Especially if you're a Republican listening right now, we talk about competition, right? And these are parties that have gone without competition for quite a long time, where it's just been a duopoly between the two of them. They have a fixed built-in voter base, and as they become these voter bases who will vote for them no matter what, because they're terrified of what the other guy might do. If they get that power, then there's no need for them to ever get better. And at the end of the day, there's no need for them to even care about you really whatsoever. They're helping you out by not letting the other guy win, right? And so that they fulfilled that duty. And this is good for them as well. This gives them competition. They have to be more responsive to their actual voters, and if you're in Congress, to the actual people in their districts. And hopefully they'll learn that you're going to actually have to do some things to help people. And my hope would be it's going to be someone who realizes that what the government needs to do to help people is stop trying to help people. But that's my personal opinion on the matter. Not really a question in there, but just a comment. I did want to get to what some of the main parts of your campaign, as we're talking about like what people actually care about. What are they wanting their government to do right now? Like, what are some of the main parts of your campaign when you're going out and talking to people? Like, what are you talking to them about?
I would say the number one issue is affordability. And that just speaks to the economy in general. Like you said, there's not really any competition between the two parties. They like to pretend that there is, but all they're really fighting over is who is going to be in majority at any particular time. They have been comfortably in power for almost 170 years and have gotten fat and lazy and don't really care about actually doing things. So we're presented options like, do you want $2.2 trillion in debt deficit this year, or do you want $2.7 trillion in deficit this year? It's not a matter of what quality, it's quantity. They're offering the exact same thing. It's just different amounts. So most people, I think, are just worried about, they don't, a lot of them still, and I don't know how to put this exactly, again, we're tribal. And so it's hard sometimes to admit that the team that you've identified with for so long is maybe not very efficient or responsive. And so between the lines, if you read between the lines, people, I think almost everybody recognizes that there's got to be a change, because they know that, housing prices, food prices, anything that you buy at the store, jobs are seemingly drying up and the wages are going down, and healthcare is astronomical, and everything, I think at some level, it's that affordability thing. And that is solely due to government meddling. So the question is, how do we fix it? And not really anybody is addressing that. They're just talking about the window dressing. They're talking about the what color hubcaps we should put, rather than whether or not we should steer away from the cliff.
Yeah, and they go for this easy solution, like, oh, that's too expensive. What if I give you some money to buy that thing? And doesn't that fix the problem? And we've had this with Obamacare now for a while, where the government's throwing a bunch of money towards people buying insurance. And what do you know? The cost of the underlying cost of the product or service has continued to explode over that time, while the government was helping to conceal some of that underlying cost. Some of that expires this year, and all of a sudden people are seeing what a little bit more of a representation of what it actually costs, and all of a sudden it's a huge issue. It was always a huge issue. It's just you were having other people pay for it for you, and that's a tough message for people like us to get across to people, when you got one person saying, I'm going to pay your insurance bill for you, and now the other person a new thing is, I'm going to give you money so you can pay your insurance bill. And then another guy is saying, do we need insurance for this stuff? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, right? Or they're saying the government is making all these things too expensive, and plus I'm not going to threaten that guy with jail time to take his money and give it to you. That's insane. Like that's a tough road to hoe.
Yeah, well, and that's why they continue to do nothing about it. And by they, I mean politicians. These sorts of things, the sacred cows, so to speak, are considered that because if you attempt to change them in order to be solvent and reasonable, you're going to make somebody angry and they're not going to vote for you and you're going to lose your office. So what do? You kick the can down the road till you decide to get out of office. And that's a pretty sad way to do things. Social Security is, by the government's own accounting, is going to be insolvent in 2032. It's not very far down the road.
Yeah, that's I've been talking a lot about that lately, and the other thing people have been talking about is the big Medicare trust fund, the hospital insurance trust fund, also becomes insolvent the same year. Mm-hmm. They have other portions that they pay for other things with, but Medicare payouts have to be reduced down to like 80% of what they are right now in that year as well. And seemingly no one really wants to solve the problem. Now, I saw from this, excuse me, I'm going to be sarcastic here for a minute, but I saw from this mailer that went out to my house that you're going to protect Social Security and lower healthcare costs. If you're watching, you have no idea what I'm referring to. Someone, an organization, sent out some mailers comparing you with Matt Van Epps, and you did a video explaining to everyone that you did not send those out. Because yours would have had better font. But there's a story about that and everything, but they did say that you would protect Social Security and that you would lower healthcare costs. And so I don't know, did you thank them for that, or were you kind of upset that they sent out stuff with your face and name on it?
Well, I mean, there were three things on there. Number one was vote for the release of the Epstein files. So that was true. Protect Social Security, I guess it depends on your definition of protect. So my generation, I'm the tail end of Gen X. I think my generation still wants it really badly, but I'm 45 and I don't expect to use Social Security at all. I feel like it'll probably be defunct by the time I get that old. And millennials and Gen Z pretty much universally that I've spoken with agree that, hey, there it is.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and put it up there on screen so people can see it.
Universally think that Social Security won't be around by the time they get old enough. So we have to do something. Again, 2032, it's going to be insolvent and it's going to start being reduced anyway. So we can either do nothing and it'll eventually go bankrupt along with the United States because we continue to be in trillions of dollars of debt every single year, which is insane. Or we can try to do something. It's going to be a politically hard question of how to do it. You're going to have to reduce benefits. You'll have to extend benefits to later or increase revenue somehow. All three of those are horrible and unfortunate, but that's the situation we're in. There's no other way to do it.
That is like when you say that, I'm going to reiterate, those are the only options. There are, Rand Paul went out and said this. I think he was on Tim Pool, on Timcast, and I'm sure you saw it. He just got drug hard after that. I mean, that people were all over him for saying that they were going to have to raise the retirement age or raise the taxes or the benefits are going to have to cut. And those are people who want to keep the program. And so I just want to reiterate, those are literally the only options that there are. And just simply saying these are the options that we have can get you destroyed by certain political parties who I get, like, is it better to lie about things? I don't know. It's just, I think telling the truth is better.
Well, I mean, that's what got us where we're at is lying and just kicking the can. So I don't claim to know what the right answer is, but I think at the very least we need to have a discussion on it, and nobody has been having an honest discussion about it. That's the key. They say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's fine. We don't have to do anything, or we can just tweak things around the edges. It's like healthcare. There are so many things wrong with healthcare that it's not merely how you can make the appearance of the payments less. Giving people money or giving insurance company money is not going to change any of the fundamentals, and in fact is going to make them worse. It'll make your insurance even higher. It'll make healthcare costs higher. So we have to have the hard discussions of what truly is at issue here and how can we fix it. Let's talk about some ideas. And that's what I think independents are offering, is that we don't have to disagree or outright counter a proposal that's being given by somebody who happens to be the wrong party, because everybody's at that point is going to be the wrong party. So everybody's on equal footing. And so I think you should be able to talk about these issues on the merits themselves, not about who pushes them, not who sponsors the bills.
Now, shifting away from the, I guess, the economics and the affordability, which is the main thing that I like to talk. That is what matters to everyone at the end of the day. You need to be able to pay your bills. Got to be able to have a house. Go to the doctor if you get sick, get groceries, turn your lights on, things like that. All the other things are sort of secondary to that hierarchy of needs. Lately on my show, I've been saying that world peace is something that a beauty pageant contestant says it's a noble goal, but it's if you can't buy groceries and you get evicted, and you lose your house and you're starving, like, you're not super concerned about, what's going on the other side. But Trump has been trying to, he's brokered some peace plans. It's been a good thing. I would say both of us probably disagree with the whole bombing Iran thing. And I'm not sure where you stand on bombing boats in the Caribbean, whether or not you're good with that. Would you support a war powers resolution or something like that in Congress if that were to come up?
Oh my gosh, yes. I think there's a phenomenal book that was written quite a few years ago and I guess was re-released just recently, Cult of the Presidency by Gene Healy. Phenomenal book. Highly, highly recommend that. And it talks about how the executive department has so far overreached the constitutional authority that's been granted to it, primarily, in his opinion, because the people clamor for the government to do something about whatever issue. And so the executive just happens to have the capability to do that. But I would highly, I'm very, very supportive of war powers resolution, something to claw back as much power from the executive as we can. And that would include tariffs as well. Tariffs are very clearly constitutionally, they're taxes, and they're granted to Congress, House specifically, not the president.
We did see a de facto recognition of the fact that they add to the cost of our goods by them saying they were going to drop tariffs on specific items. I believe they made that announcement last week, that one of the things they were going to do to help with the affordability crisis was cut tariffs on specific things. And hey, I guess, I don't know if they came out and said it, but I'm in favor of them cutting whoever it was that put those tariffs on. I'm in favor of them getting rid of those taxes because they definitely add in costs. And they can, a lot of times you're protecting businesses that need to find ways to compete. And I don't want to speak for you here, but my biggest issue is, why is it so expensive to do business here in the United States? When you put tariffs on, you're ignoring the underlying root causes of the problem, which is, why is it so expensive? Why does it take so long to build a factory here, a plant here, whatever it is? And it's not just for cheap labor that people go to other countries. It's because we've made it so hard to do business. I think Trump they have taken steps to do this. We got to do everything we can to make this the most business-friendly country in the world. That's how you bring businesses back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make it easier, not harder to do business. And it's kind of funny. Trump said that the tariffs were going to be friendly for America. It's going to help us out. Yet, in order to reduce prices, he removed tariffs. So he tacitly admitted that tariffs increase prices on American goods, even though he said, no, the foreigners are going to pay for it. There was a Goldman Sachs study actually that showed 85 to 88% of tariffs are paid domestically. The lion's share by the business and the rest by the consumer. But very little of it is actually paid by foreigners. And of course, it depends on the market and how, the flexibility. But it's such an obtuse way to have an economic policy.
Yeah, and it's great that Democrats can recognize this, that tariffs add to the cost in this moment. I wish they would recognize that for all the other taxes that businesses have to pay. And it's odd that Republicans recognize that for all the other taxes that businesses have to pay, but not for tariffs. I wish they would both recognize that taxes add costs to our goods because businesses don't pay taxes, their customers pay taxes. I wanted to make sure when we were talking about foreign policy there for a minute, I know I've asked you about this before last time we talked, but it wasn't on this show. Defend the guard. Yes, no, you big on that?
Yeah, I'm definitely supportive of that.
All right. Making sure. I always got to, I just got to make sure that I check all these things off the list here, before I go cast my vote, but I'm not in your district. So I guess it's not that big of a deal. And then we figured out you are not, in fact, being funded by left-wing dark money groups as the Daily Caller, which, hey, it's great to get some publicity. I'm sure you were happy to get some publicity on that. But you're not, in fact, getting funded by left-wing dark money groups in order to try and help the Democrat win in this election.
No, sir.
You've never met George Soros?
No.
Okay. All right. Making sure. You mentioned spending earlier. I was going through some stuff on your campaign website, spending, affordability, all this. Can we just circle back to, you mentioned earlier, we're spending so much, an ungodly amount of money. And if you try to vote against that spending, and let's say you're in the U.S. House and you try to vote against that spending, you'd be in a very lonely group if you're in that. So, how tough would it be for you to hold to that when maybe someone's going to fund your primary opponent if you don't agree with adding $2 trillion more to the deficit? It's been one of my biggest disappointments that's happened this year, sort of the decision to ignore the amount of money that's getting added to the debt every single year. How do we fix that, man? I mean, we both, we understand, I'm sure people listening understand how big of an issue this is. It's not just talking because we're on a show and it's something to talk about. Like, the interest will outpace the Defense Department budget, I believe, later next year or sometime next year, or it already has by now. This is something that's got to get fixed.
Yeah, servicing of the debt is the number 2 largest line item on the budget right now. And before I started running, the deficit, the budget in general was my number 1 issue. I think the deficit and debt in general represents an existential threat to the United States. If we do not address it, it will crash and it will have massive consequences for the government and the nation as we know it, whether that's balkanization or takeover for any number of reasons. There's historical precedent throughout the world of different things that will occur or could occur. Any way you look at it, the people are going to bear the brunt of it. And so we have to ask, what can we possibly do? And again, there's not very many things you can do. It's not that hard math. You have spending that far outpaces revenues. So you can either increase revenues, decrease spending, or a little bit of both. That's it. Those are literally the only ways you can do it. I would argue that we're going to have to do a little bit of both. That alarms people because they'll say, well, you're going to increase taxes. Not necessarily. You don't have to increase taxes in order to increase revenues. There are some clever ways to do that. You can expand the tax base. So I would be in favor of expanding the economy, so to speak. Make it easier for low-income smaller businesses, small, small to medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs to be able to get in and start a business and offer their services to the people. That's going to spur economic activity, and that will, by definition, expand the tax base and make more people be able to be taxed. And how do you spur that activity is, well, you tax them less. So you should make it very, very simple to file your taxes and pay your taxes, and have a very low rate as well when you're on that lower side. Think of it like the proverbial ladder of success. You want those bottom rungs to be as close as possible, so it makes it easy to start climbing the ladder. And then once you get up higher, now you can start spreading them out, which means basically you apply the taxation rate, the higher taxation rate. This is the part where people start to glaze over their eyes, because it gets a little bit technical. But the idea is that a small business should never, in any logical world, ever have a higher effective tax rate than a large national conglomerate like Walmart or Amazon or Google. And it happens all the time.
Interesting. Yeah. So I like the idea of broadening the tax base. I think there's a rule maybe somewhere in the bylaws of the Libertarian Party where I'm supposed to mention that taxation is theft, and I'm against that. And so I would never support finding more people to tax. And I just to make sure I don't get kicked off the show, and it's not my last episode, I'm doing this without Aaron here. So I just want to throw out the disclaimer to everyone that I'm not in agreement with taxation. But we do live in the real world, and we do have a massive debt, and we do have a lot of things we're spending money on. And realistically, if we just decided to not spend any money next year, that would end up probably worse for everyone after that year, considering how many things the government is doing here and around the world. So let's bring it down over time. So widening the tax base is a big one. Good way of explaining that to people is like, basically, no matter what the tax rate is, the government collects about 17% of the GDP. And so really good thing you could do is find ways to increase the GDP. And real increases of the GDP. And I think that maybe Trump is working towards that right now through some of the deregulatory actions that he's taking. I think that could spur a lot of business development and growth. I do think they should be emphasizing telling more people about all the deregulating they're doing. That might help people like me feel better. But essentially, you can collect more taxes by having more economic activity in the country, because they collect basically 17% of all of the productive activity that takes place in the country, regardless of what the tax rate is. It fluctuates between 16 and 18, essentially. So that's a good one. And the other thing is is it possible to get people to actually reduce spending? Like, what is the course for getting them to do that? I thought we were going to do that, but then it turns out we're still going to spend $7 trillion and we'll be happy about it because it's on the right things, I guess. But Elon Musk was on the campaign trail paraphrasing Milton Friedman, and he was up there saying that all government spending is taxation. And sometimes when you decrease people's taxes, they feel good. But if the government is still spending more money, they're still going to get it from you one way or another. They're either going to print it, borrow it, or they're going to tax it. And so no matter what, they're going to collect that money. So the real problem is the spending, not so much the income. It's the expenses. Is it possible to get these people to agree to do less?
On the current course, I would say no. And again, that's why I'm running. I think that both parties have shown themselves completely incapable of doing anything to correct the course of outlandish spending. The Doge cuts came in, and they recommended all these things, and I think they finally implemented, 9 billion or something like that, which is less than 0.5% of the entire current year deficit. And it was probably even more than that, or less than that percentage wise now, because they've increased spending. So I truly believe that a balanced budget amendment is required. The problem with the balanced budget amendment is that it doesn't necessarily limit spending. You just have to balance the budget. So like you said, more spending just means more revenue. So that just means they have to increase taxes somehow, which is not necessarily a good thing, but they have to somehow limit it. And again, there's those little sacred cows. We have to address Social Security or it's going to be insolvent. Let's also talk about how we can maybe offset that a little bit and take it off the government books, privatize that a little bit. There was a study, I don't remember who said it, instead of putting it into a theoretical account that everybody thinks there's some big account somewhere, a big vault with all this money sitting in it that's for the Social Security, and they keep running in there and robbing it. No, the Social Security program is literally set up. All proceeds go directly to the general fund, and they just put IOUs in there. So it's monopoly money. Had they done, instead of doing that, put the money into some sort of an account in a private fund, like literally just like an S&P index fund, it would have been, what was it, like 17 trillion in profits right now. It was mind-boggling. It was massive profits. Had they done that instead of squandered all the money. So there are solutions, but they're just going to take some time and they're going to be hard. Defense budget. Everybody, that's another sacred cow. The United States spends as much as the next 9 or 10 countries combined. It's probably up to 10 or maybe even 11 now. I don't know. It's so hard to track. And there's no reason for that. We're looking solely at spending, not quality. We should be looking at quality over quantity rather than how much we're spending. What are our capabilities? What can we do? What do we need to do? Do we really need 180 plus bases all over the world? I would say no. So there's an awful lot of room for cuts there. I would, somebody said 5%. I don't remember who suggested a 5%, and they almost tarred and feathered him on the floor. If we cut the defense budget in half, a 50% reduction, that would bring us from the number one expenditure in the world all the way down to the number one expenditure in the world. And instead of the 9 or 10, only exceed China and Russia, which are the number 2 and number 3 combined. So we're still number one. It's outlandish. They are not serious about doing anything with our debt. They're not serious about doing anything with spending, anything with revenue. It's all a charade. And who gets screwed is the future generations. And that is abysmal. And I think that's abhorrent. It's immoral. It needs to change.
Yeah, and what people need to realize, like, what does this have to do with me? How does this affect me here in Tennessee? Well, they end up destroying the money that's in your bank account or that's in your wallet in order to pay for all of these things, and likely a lot of it is waste. And so all of these things, really do matter. When we talk about affordability, how about we stop destroying your dollar every single day of the week? That would be a nice place to start. I did have a question here from the chat since we are live right now. I want to know your views of the COVID era. Remember that COVID thing? That was crazy. Mm-hmm. And what were the other 2 candidates doing at that time? Were they, and actually, I don't know the answer to that. How are they on the lockdowns and mandates? Like, this could happen again. There could be another virus pops up. Like, what kind of people could potentially be getting elected here?
Well, I don't know exactly what Afton was doing during the time that was before she was in office. I didn't bother looking at her personal account based on, I'm assuming she's more or less in favor of the official government response, just considering on what she has done since. But I don't want to put words in her mouth. Matt Van Epps was, of course, the what do they call it, the COVID czar or whatever in Tennessee during the time. I don't know how much he specifically was able to direct policy, but he enforced policy, and so. I think when you're in a position of power like that, it's incumbent upon you to push back a little bit on what exceeds the authority of your role in the government in general. When I was in the Army, we had the you swear the oath to the Constitution. You uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it's a little bit weird to say the domestic part, and it's not necessarily somebody who wants to destroy the United States or take it over and install a puppet government. Sometimes it's merely somebody that is trying to overstep their bounds. So in the case of Trump and tariffs, I think it would have been incumbent upon Congress to very staunchly say, no, that is not within your bounds. Whenever any executive, going back as far as I can remember, is engaged in these overseas wars that are not using a declaration of war, that is Congress's responsibility to push back. So I think it would have been Matt's responsibility to say, no, we don't have the authority to shut the state down. We don't have the authority to tell people what to do. I personally was in the medical industry at the time, and there was a lot of pressure, and they were toying with the idea of mandating vaccines. And I had made it very clear from the beginning that was a no. That was a line I was not going to cross. That you cannot tell me what to do with my body, and I don't think that should ever be forced on people. That's I don't know. I hope I'm getting that across very okay.
Yeah, I think you are. It's wild to me how most people seem to have memory hold this whole COVID thing. I mean, we're not that far removed from that situation with the masks, the vaccine mandates, and business closures, people losing their livelihoods, massive inflation. It just happened.
Yeah, and that's, I guess you just brought up the more important point. It's one thing, I think, to try to mandate something like a vaccine that is arguably experimental and didn't properly go through the right channels of discovery and whether or not it was going to be truly safe. The government has long trod in that area of making us take things for our health, that it's not that much of a leap to go one more vaccine. It's still a line that I think shouldn't have been crossed, just for the record. But the more alarming one was shutting down businesses. Somehow some person in government somewhere could arbitrarily, as far as I'm concerned, declare one person's business non-essential and send them home and destroy their livelihood. Oh man, that is not America. Nothing about that is allowable by any document I have ever seen, or the unwritten concept of what America means. It is so far removed from what it means to be a free country. That more than anything else, I think should, like you said, never ever go down the memory hole. And we should maybe turn that into a national holiday of, hey, you remember when we allowed ourselves to be turned into a authoritarian country?
Yeah, it's I'm surprised every time I talk to someone about it that so many people seem to have forgotten that there hasn't really been a reckoning on that. Maybe you could say the 2024 election was a bit of that, but started in 2020. So I'm still waiting for that national reckoning. I'm waiting for everyone to realize how big of an issue that was. I'm sure I'm sure it'll happen sometime in the future for sure. I want to make sure everyone knows that this election is on December 2nd. If they are in your district, District 7, December 2nd, that is the Tuesday right after Thanksgiving, which sucks for sure. Just coming right out of the holidays, and you got to remember that you need the vote. But it's an important election, and even if this is a big long shot getting an independent in there, I think at the end of the day, don't go there because you think you're going to push Jon over the edge and he's going to get in the office and go there. Go there at least to send a message and to give everyone else a market signal that they have to get better to get these votes. They need to see, well, what about all those people? Why'd they go vote for that independent? Why wasn't I able to get those votes? And maybe at the end of the day, even if we don't get independents in, which I hope we do, or we get libertarians in too, but at the end of the day, at least you send the signal to those people that they've got to do something better in order to earn other people's votes. And so even if you don't even if you're in that district, even if you don't think that Jon's going to win, that there's still a win in sending that message, sending that market signal, and voting for Jon. You've got my endorsement. I'm not in your district, so I won't be able to help really with that. Where can people go to find to follow? I know you've got a X account that you seem to be pretty active on. You got a website. Where can they go?
Yeah, we're pretty much on all the social medias, thorpforcongress.com. There you go, right there. And down at the bottom, you can get on X, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. I have been horrible at updating YouTube. I apologize. Which is funny because I go there all the time. What else? Oh, Instagram. I don't know, basically all of them. And let me just leave out with this little tidbit. It's again, I think this is about doing what is best for the voters, the people of, and not just voters, everybody, whether they can vote or not, everybody of Tennessee. And people feel like they have been unheard and dismissed, and politicians don't care. And that's the message that we're sending. And we recently sent out an AI chatbot text thing that it was actually pretty interesting. There was a very high positive rate of responses to it. And I went in and just sort of audited some of the conversations, and they were really neat, the back and forth between that chatbot and these people. And I just started randomly calling people and following up or texting them. And just the fact that a candidate had the audacity, I guess, to reach out and call and leave them their phone number was pretty alarming or amazing, I guess, for a lot of people. So where I'm getting at with that, there's a form on my website, says, ask me any questions, send me a question. If your question is, how can I have a better conversation? Give me your phone number. Hey, I'll give you my phone number. We can have a chat.
Awesome, man. That's cool. Well, I wish you the best of luck in that election, and I hope we can talk sometime before that. We'll go, I think I'm going to put this out on my other channel as well, and just try and get the word out. But thank you so much for the conversation tonight. It was a really great time. And we need to talk more often for sure, because last time I talked to you, it was really, really great conversation for sure. And I have the feeling that if we were to extend this for a couple hours or so, we could have some really good in-depth conversations about what really needs to happen. And we're going to have to do that in the future. But thank you so much for your time tonight, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it.